Hi, who are you? What's your name? What do you do?
Hi, my name's Tooba. I am the CEO of Amobea AI. We're building an AI data scientist for go-to-market teams.
Okay, all right. Creating a data scientist for a go-to-market team. So basically bringing in a data scientist within your team, acting as a person on your team. So what does that data scientist do?
So essentially similar to like a human data scientist, we sit kind of in a central function. So you can do anything and everything, but we primarily focus on giving you the right things to pay attention to in your data and then telling you what you should do with them. But it's very open-ended. You can ask it any kind of questions like you would with a normal data scientist, or you can ask it to conduct like long-term research over trends. But the idea there is that you don't have to worry about what you're missing in your data. The data scientist kind of looks after that.
I see. And what made you think that this would be a good approach? Was it the technology that was looking for a problem, or did you say, marketing has this problem and this is a way to solve it? Which way did you come to
I was working at a B2B SaaS company that was catering to marketers, and I was kind of their data scientist person as I would talk to them. So I knew the problem space existed because even analytics companies were still asking the question of like, am I getting the most out of my data? And at the same time I was studying Neurosymbolic AI, and I knew that the technology is getting to a place where it's fundamentally time to change how we even look at data as a whole, right? So it was like the right point because the problem space existed, the technology was finally there. And then I was like, okay, this is the right time to kind of innovate into solving this problem space.
So what are companies running into? What kind of problems are they having when they would say, yes, let's look at Amoeba to try to fix it? Like, will they recognize it as a problem, or is it just like they've already kind of always done this?
That's a good question.
Like, how do they become aware? That they need
I
a
think
solution?
that on the outset, people don't recognize the problem because their instinct is to say, well, I can calculate things in a spreadsheet, or I can use some of the existing tools. And now, especially with LLMs, it was a lot easier, right? We're optimizing, it becomes faster. But I think when I give them this analogy of like, okay, but it's biased again because you're asking a question, so you're pointing it to a certain direction. What if the answer existed outside of where you're pointing it? What would you do? What if like the key to your 30% growth sat outside of like where you were paying attention? So that generally drives intrigue for them. But I think that the proof is in the pudding, because then what we do is we take a bunch of synthetic data and we show them real time to be like, okay, what would you look at if you were using a traditional dashboard, and what could this system do for you? And I think when you show them that, it's like kind of the art of the possible. Things start opening up for them in terms of like, I could have been missing X, Y, Z. The analogy I like to use is, it's like, especially for me now as a startup founder, like we don't sleep. We're always like thinking about, what did I miss today? What was I meant to do? But business owners as a whole will never like escape that, right? So this is in the bucket of cognition as a service in a CAS stack. So it offloads that like cognitive load that you have to something like this that you can trust, and then you focus on either deciding the implementation of the strategy or then like higher fidelity problems. Then it just kind of opens.
So they see what their missing opportunity cost.
The missed opportunity cost.
Cost. Yeah. So we've always heard about like data-driven marketing, but this seems fundamentally different. I mean, what would be the difference between that model and then this agentic model that you're using?
I think the couple of fundamental differences. The biggest one is like when we talk about data-driven marketing, we still it's the human driving the car, essentially. So we're giving you like a Waymo, it's an autonomous car. You're still putting in directions of where you want to go, essentially, but you're not taking the burden of like driving it there, right? It's basically like kind of doing that itself. The more they realize they can sit back and relax where the trust is established, the more they realize that their brain is better suited for, again, like higher fidelity problems. So it's fundamentally different because instead of you even asking the data anything, the data is exactly telling you where to pay attention. So I would say this is true data-driven marketing versus like back in the day, which was...
Speaking of autonomous driving.
Yeah, speaking of autonomous driving. You see, I made a connection there.
Yeah, that was very good.
Speaking, versus back in the day where it's like you have a really fancy car but you're still driving.
Right. Do you sense, but they also know that, I got to make better decisions.
Yeah, so if you think about sort of like playbooks, the more like later down the funnel you get, so like by the time it reaches like CROs, the more repeatable playbooks become, the more repeatable your business is at that point. So we pick marketers on purpose because psychologically their brain is
You mean as a first market to take the solution to?
Yeah, because I think the person that is used to experimentation. If that persona is sticky with a solution, that's a harder persona to solve for.
Right.
This is like highest amount of variance is in this persona. So we felt if we could solve it in this persona, it's easier to solve.
So you go to the hardest nut to crack.
Hardest
first.
nut to crack.
Right.
That's also why we pick, by the way, B2B, because we get that question a lot where, why wouldn't you pick B2C, which is like a ton of data? And I was like, that's another fallacy that we want to break. Is like, for using these solutions, like, you don't need a ton of data.
Right. So when you say data within a company, what exactly, which data stores, which applications, how do you know which data to choose, and what do you define as
So I think
data?
that's part of our proprietary tech. Is like, we know everything starts with the data. So one is data sits across a bunch of different sources, but we do aggregation, or you have a CDP that we connect into. And then some folks are like, only CRM data, only advertisement data. So like people are spread pretty far apart. Our first transformation layer is like responsible for creating like a schema without any intervention. So it just creates a schema for you. And then based on any goals that you're selecting, we actually create mini schemas for all of those. Semantically, they're created. So you're not necessarily intervening in that as a human. And that's just the birth of the living ontology. It's like there's an always-on compute that's looking at the broader schema to see what data points might be relevant for like the moment in time schema for a goal that you're tracking. There are people in the marketing world who are very data proficient. So for certain people, I want to observe my ontology, or I want to verify my ontology. So we do offer that where like you can see it, you can verify it. But I always advise against, outside of like definitions, I advise against amending relationships, because the way neural nets work, they do like a first pass of nonlinear, but then over time that pass gets stronger and stronger. So nonlinear relationships are actually great, like nonlinear.
So you see patterns and
Yeah.
things like, just asking existential questions about your company that you want to answer almost. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And we encourage philosophizing on entrepreneurs. We encourage it, highly encourage it. But the intention of that is it also allows this feeling of safety with the end user, where they feel like, okay, it's adaptive to me. The neural net in itself is adaptive, but I think the idea of like giving them an interface where they feel like they can contribute to the adaptation, like builds trust for them that this is now becoming my
Have you seen kind of aha moments in customers? This is not like
so
normally...
first conversation, their eyes glaze over because it's neural nets and like nobody wants to hear about the math generally.
Right.
The second conversation, they start to seek again the art of the possible, but we also live in a world where I'm sure they pitch the art of the possible by like a lot of different people. So I would say the aha moments generally come when it's their data because it's their world instead of just the synthetic data. But very quickly, if we're able to spot something anomalous, that's the thing that convinces them. Because think about like a normal traditional ML solution. If you think about 6 Sense as an example, it's like 6 months to set up like appropriately in a way that's completely adapted to you, which is common for like traditional ML stuff. So if like from 1 week of you setting it up, the next week I'm coming to you and telling you, hey, you're missing $30,000 on this like advertisement campaign that got turned on by mistake that you forgot to turn off for someone in your team, they're instantly like, oh crap, like. So we generally anchor on finding something anomalous like within the first week or so, and then that is the moment.
And you go from there. Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of,
They have to see it. They have to
Right.
see the science in their context. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And like the difference between it routing through an LLM versus it routing through like a neurosymbolic. But if you compare them side by side, the kind of things you get out is something that starts to spark their curiosity. And that's what we're in the business of. We're in the business of sparking curiosity.
Right.
Once you have that, then you can kind
And
of
you look for it. And marketing people are more curious probably
naturally
than other
curious.
roles, right? Yeah.
Yeah, naturally eager to adopt newer things, I would say. The spirit of experimentation, like it's for us, our first couple of modules are modeled after growth marketer, which is like, and like I'm talking about elite thousands growth marketer.
And so you mentioned like an AI agent, a data scientist. Are there more data scientists that can come? And then what would be the balance between kind of the human and the data scientists? Like, are there other, like, would this data scientist multiply, or would this one data scientist be all that a company would need in order to do what they need
Yeah,
to do?
I think that we call it a data scientist because I think as humans, it's like easier for us to understand and
Anthropomorphize it.
simplify. Yeah, and it's a data science platform in a sense. So I always pitch this as like the intelligence layer. It sits between your data and your point solutions.
It's like a middleware side.
Yeah, exactly. And the power is in the middleware.
Yeah.
On the application side, you can adapt it to anything and everything. But it's like the power is in like the outputs that you're getting out of it.
Right.
So we see this being a horizontal product in the sense that eventually the only question that you would ask it is, I want to grow my business.
Right.
That's it, not department specific.
Right.
So it caters to like a COO, CEO.
Okay. And so what, your future of your business, where do you see yourself taking this? You know, what?
We run like two arms. One arm is very much R&D arm, just always experimenting with new things that are coming out, and one arm is like obviously our business arm. So for the business arm, we're focused right now on like marketers, growth marketers, go-to-market teams, and then extend out to finance team and product teams. So that's like our short-term vision, is to be like the one cohesive platform that they have that works across a lot of their teams. And then in the future, the idea is like then expanding out to like industry-specific stuff, so like connected to action as well. So focusing on that foundationally right now, and then expanding.
That's where you're going. Okay. All right. Last couple of questions. So I'm a career coach, and so I talk to people at all levels, beginning, middle, and end. You know, as somebody, you know, you're CEO, you're positioned to hire, things.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in an employee now? What advice would you give to people, especially kind of older workers who are trying to kind of find their way in this industry and stuff? Any advice you would give in terms of how they could retool themselves, what they should be focusing on, what the attitude is? What kind of advice?
I think attitude-wise, foundationally, you should be your own friend of learning. I always say that because there's new stuff coming out every day. So if the only skill we teach ourselves is like how to learn to use new tools, how to experiment, how to play with, that's what excites me about
Make
the
friends
trend
with
right
the
now.
data scientist
Yeah,
agent.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I see like I'm not a marketer, but I'm a marketer's friend, and I'm
Right.
designing a marketer's friend, right? So the more people are in a mindset of like, I want to get my hands on it,
Right.
play with it, that mindset takes you a lot of places
Right.
in this world. And then the second thing is like do it, like humility needs to like be present when you do these things, because the minute you tell yourself I know everything is the minute you fall flat. I think specifically for new and kind of like folks who are coming in and starting their own companies, create your own blueprint of what you're going to do. I see a lot of advice out there about like, you know, structuring your day in a certain way, or like, you know, dedicating time to your family and like I don't say don't do that, but I'm saying you have your own blueprint of how you do that. My blueprint right now is for the next couple of months, I'm obsessively, you know, about my company, and I've like done the work of like setting up my family and my friend groups, etc., in a way where they can fulfill me, support me outside of that. Because my flavor is I wake up obsessively thinking about this problem, I go to sleep obsessively thinking about this problem. So don't be afraid to kind of have your own flavor of like what this means for you, because I think that's what people kind of probably appreciate the most. Don't lose yourself in the process, I would say. Because there are a lot of examples out there of people who've made it in their own ways, right? So it's easy to say there's a blueprint and I should follow it. But there's a balance between learning from what people have done versus like just like conforming into those people.
Right. Okay. All right. Last question. It's like a red carpet question. I've been digging your shoes. Can you tell me a little bit about it? What kind of shoes those are?
Yeah. So these are Converse's platforms. I have a bias.
Converse platforms?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I always feel like I'm short, so I always gravitate towards platforms. Also, I was a raver back in the day, so there was a lot of stomping around in platforms. And I've never grown out of that, and I feel like that's kind of my flavor. I'm a fun shoe person.
That's good. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Great.